Hey everyone, before we get started learning more about Duke University, we wanted to let you know that you can calculate your chances of admission at Duke and other schools with your free CollegeVine account. Start by completing your chanting profile with information such as your GPA, test scores, and extracurricular activities. From there, you can use CollegeVine's Hub tool to see your chances and information about the school, such as cost, majors, and more. Visit the link in the description below to sign up and see your chances today.
Duke is a very competitive, selective school in terms of admissions. There's a holistic process, which is a term that many of you may have heard before, but GPA, test scores, extracurriculars, and a variety of other factors are considered. So among the most recent incoming class, the class of 2024, only 7.7% of students were admitted. That corresponds to a 6% regular decision acceptance rate, a 21% early decision acceptance rate, and altogether that's 7.7%. And the admitted students had a middle 50% SAT score in the range of 1500 to 1560 and ACT score range of 33 to 35. So now I'm going to delve into a couple of case studies, and I have kept these anonymous, but just to give you full disclosure, the first one is myself, and hopefully these will give you a bit of insight into different profiles of Duke students and how they presented themselves in the admissions process, and perhaps glean a little bit of insight into why they were ultimately accepted. So as I said, myself, I am an Asian female from Massachusetts, currently majoring in CS and economics. I went to a private high school and my test scores were in the upper range of what Duke accepts. And a couple of things I forgot to mention are I took 3 SAT subject tests. I took math 2, which I scored an 800 on, chemistry, where I got, I believe, a 780, and then literature, where I scored a 720, as well as a handful of AP exams. And my high school didn't offer a ton of AP exams, so the few that I did take, I did have to self-study for a couple of them. In high school, I was involved in a variety of organizations. I was the co-president of Mock Trial, and that was the thing that I was most passionate about. I wrote my essay about it. I went to a number of local, regional, and state competitions for that. I founded a political club. I did a summer research fellowship at a gender studies center, and I was the advertising manager of the school newspaper. On the community service front, I was involved in volunteering for a local nonprofit, as well as a couple of organizations through my high school. And I got involved in some identity-based organizations, as well as a couple of summer programs throughout my time in high school. Case study number 2 is a white and Hispanic male from New York. He is a legacy student, which means that one of his parents attended Duke back in the day, and currently he is a mechanical engineering major at Duke, and he attended a public high school. As you can see, the SAT scores, this is on the old SAT scale, the 2400 scale, and this score was on the lower end of the typical profile of a Duke student applying, but you can see that some of his AP scores were pretty strong, and he was involved in a number of organizations during high school as well, including track and field and community service, and a couple of clubs that are on here as well. The third case study, this is a more crowded slide, but she's a white female from Virginia, currently majoring in history and English at Duke. who attended a private high school in Virginia. Her SAT score, again, was on the lower end. As you might recall, the middle 50% is around a 15 to 1600 for Duke students. AP exams, she self-studied for quite a number of these, but she took, I think, 13 in total. Each of the exams has a corresponding score in parentheses, as you can see here. Outside of classes and test scores, she was very, very involved on campus. So one thing I do want to stress is that test scores are not the whole picture. And if you don't score well, it's not the end of the world, although it certainly does help to score well. Having a number of extracurricular involvements, it makes you a much more interesting applicant. And so, as you can see here, she was the editor-in-chief of her school newspaper, president of French Club, founder of the Political Discussion Forum, and did a number of other things from sports, community service, and volunteering in hospitals, etc. She also was, she did the Yale Young Global Scholars Program and interned on a congressional campaign and at an oncology center. So a couple of common threads here is she was, at the time when she applied to Duke, was a prospective pre-medical student, but didn't ultimately end up pursuing that path. But as an applicant, she stressed her interest in medicine as well as her interest in politics. So just to recap the admissions process, colleges are not looking for a class of students who are all one and the same. They're looking for a class of students who bring all sorts of strengths to the table. And so they're not comparing you to every other student and saying, okay, they check the box of X, Y, and Z. Really, every applicant is unique. And so you want to put your best foot forward everywhere. And standardized test scores are not the most important metric for elite colleges. They're a screening method. So certainly do the best you can on the SAT or the ACT, but getting a 1600 on the SAT does not guarantee admissions by any means. And more specific to Duke, there is an early decision round in the fall, which is binding, and regular decision, which is non-binding. And I'll talk about another deadline a little bit later called the priority interview deadline. But the major decision you have to make here is between early decision and regular decision. So obviously, early decision, the deadline is earlier and it is binding. But if you are willing to commit to Duke and Duke is your top choice and you think you are a competitive applicant, certainly do consider early decision as an option. When you submit your test scores, Duke will super score or aggregate your highest subscores for different sections across the test dates for the ACT and SAT. You will have to submit 2 teacher recommendations and 1 counselor recommendation. If you are applying to Pratt, one of those has to be from a math or science teacher. There is 1 long essay. So in the Duke supplement, you can choose from 1 of 7 prompts in the Common App or 1 of 5 in the Coalition app, as well as 3 short essays, only 1 of which is required, the Why Duke essay, and 2 additional ones that are optional, which are diversity essays, but they do offer a really great opportunity for students to showcase another side of themselves to the admissions committee. So I just want to stress, number 1, make sure you meet the academic cutoffs. As I said, test scores are often a screening method rather than the end all be all, but you really do want to try your best to to make sure you meet that academic cutoff. And secondly, make sure you are working to cultivate an extracurricular profile that passes the holistic review process. And then express yourself in your essays and interviews in a way that shows your passion and how you're compatible with Duke's values and culture, and above all, why you are a good fit for Duke. I think one slide that I skipped over earlier, and I apologize for this, is an optional interview process. So this will be conducted by alumni in your area. There are no on-campus interviews offered, so you can't sign up for an interview at the admissions office when you're touring Duke's campus. That's not available as an option, unfortunately, but interviews are offered on a first-come, first-served basis. So in order to be guaranteed an interview, you have to submit by either the early decision deadline if you're applying ED, or the priority interview deadline, which is December 30th, which is a couple weeks earlier than the actual regular decision deadline, but that guarantees that you receive an alumni interview. And as a general tip, Duke is looking for sustained commitment to a handful of activities rather than superficial involvement in a long list of things. Don't skip the optional essays. While you may think that you're not the typical diversity applicant, it's valuable to highlight some aspect of yourself or your background that stands out to the admissions committee. And if Duke is your top choice, definitely consider applying early decision. Right, so back to my last slide. In conclusion, I just want to emphasize Duke is a wonderful school, and if you are on the fence about applying, I hope this presentation swayed you in favor of applying, but the admissions process is definitely a complicated process. College Vine exists for that reason, to help provide guidance and help students navigate the whole application process. But if Duke is a good fit for you, or you think it may be, hopefully this presentation was helpful in informing that decision.